This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Woo! All right. Captain Markov, Zyla, and Gorgon are discussing the last time they all met before the crew broke up, at a bar where tensions were high, but feelings were still strong. Oh, man, I don't know. You know the weapon was on that ship, right?
I mean, I know. I know with all my heart that weapon was there. Why? There's no reason it wouldn't be there.
Besides, it was her only chance to stop Tetra, if he was on the ship.
I mean, I hope she was.
Too.
No, you got, we all saw the intel. We all saw the intel. We all agreed. She was on the ship. The weapon was on the ship.
I don't know, it feels like a setup.
Yeah, but we did what we had to do. Cap, we trusted you. You know we followed you to hell and back. So whatever happens next.
What we need to do is we need to stick together. I'm not going to give up on any of you, and we're going to get through this.
All right. Let's see.
All right. Draw a card.
All right.
There we go.
And welcome to the 435th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Once more into the mini game. We're going to be talking about mini games tonight. And as if you're watching on the video, we have guests in the house. So first, I'm going to just make sure that we introduce the normal crew, and then we're going to have our guests introduce themselves. My name is Phil.
My name is Jerry.
And I'm Old Man Logan. I'm the disembodied voice tonight.
Bob's in the control room tonight.
I'm the man in the chair.
All right. And our guests tonight, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jamie Najeti. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm super happy to be here.
And I'm Jason Pitt, who most of you already know. Genesis of Legend Publishing, the RPG Design Panelcast, the Game Design Lounge, one of the IGDN people. I do games.
Yeah.
I know. Jamie, you're selling yourself short here. You way undersold your introduction.
I did. Oh my gosh.
You have a number of games and several very interesting games to your name.
I do have a reputation. I used to be the game jammer. It got so bad that they put together a game jam called the Jammy Jam Jam Jam. So I used to release 1 to 3 games every month for game jams on itch.io. So if you check out my itch.io page, I have about 40 games on there of varying length. I have a few more on my Patreon that are secretly there, but I love to make games. And currently, I think my biggest projects are Apocalypse Keys, which got picked up by Eva Hat for publishing. So that's an open playtest right now. It's about monsters defying the apocalypse. And the one I'm most excited about today is Once More Into the Void, which you're going to get to talk about. It's my very, very, very first Kickstarter, and I'm super excited.
There we go. I way undersold yourself. I've been on your itch page. I've looked. I was like, yeah. Okay, good. Now that everybody knows who you are, now we're set. And yes, Jason's old hat here. Jason's been we have Jason. Jason's an annual event, at least annual event.
Well, I clearly need to release more Kickstarters.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I have used to show up more.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need you don't need a Kickstarter to show up. We like helping out promoting Kickstarters, but you can show up anytime.
I mean, it's tradition. I mean, I need to launch a Kickstarter. I need to give a super specific outline of an episode, and then we need to chat about it. So.
Yes, and optionally can discuss the various poutines.
Yes,
and whether they are valid poutines or not.
Oh my gosh. Is there a checklist involved?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Down with heretical
In the
poutine.
in the after show, I want to hear what makes for a proper poutine, so I don't make that
Oh,
mistake.
that's the whole after show
There you
covered.
go.
We'll be good. That'll cover the whole time. Good.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear me some poutine talk. All right.
All right.
Oh, I'll tell you about Acadian poutine afterwards.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, excellent. So, in order, because when we have guests on, the show is always longer than we expected. So, in order to keep the show to a reasonable length, we're dropping a few of our normal segments. We're going to do a couple quick announcements, and then we'll jump into our main topic for tonight, which is going to be the garage topic on mini games, which has everything to do with Once More Into the Void. No surprise. But first, I'll just make one quick Misdirected Mark announcement. Our Voyager Watch Club is now into week 10. I believe this is our third week of season 4. These episodes are good. Our watch party tonight is 2 excellent episodes, 2-parter that I rather like. But one of my favorite episodes is buried in the list this week, the Omega Protocol, which I just think is a cool. It's just a cool little standalone episode. If you're, again, we've said this in the past, we're past the part where you could easily jump in unless you're already a Voyager fan, and then you're welcome to join us. But if you get the urge to pick it up, go to the forums. We have all the week, with the episode list for each week listed out, and you can just you can play the home game yourself and just watch through. I've curated the list for all the better episodes, and then with some recommendations for some other ones if you have time. That's our Voyager Watch Club.
Awesome.
But now I'm going to turn it over to our guests, because what we want to start talking about, which will help frame a lot of our discussion for tonight, is that you guys are here to discuss your brand new funded Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Which is excellent, right? First day funding is.
Sorry, that's US. I was like, you'll want to refresh that. It's higher. But yeah, no, I'm always looking at the Canadian dollars, which are always higher.
Yeah.
I had to do my quick conversions this morning. Like how much is that in? Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you both and tell us about both the game Once More Into the Void, and then tell us about the Kickstarter.
So, Jamie.
Yeah. So Once More Into the Void is a game that is deeply inspired by my love for Star Trek Picard and Mass Effect 2, just sci-fi in general, found family and connections. Just to quickly say what brought about the idea, I was watching Star Trek Picard, and he was trying to recruit someone who was part of his crew. And as that scene was playing out, it was such a good scene, really great acting. I was like, this feels like a game. This feels like and this happens a lot, right? For designers, we're watching something and we get inspired. But I was like, I can see this feels like a Firebrands game. I can see the prompts and which one they chose and how the scene is playing out. So basically, Once More Into the Void is about a captain who betrayed their crew. They used to be big damn heroes together. They used to save the galaxy. They were a really strong family unit, but the captain left that all behind in the face of tragedy. And it's been years now, but the threat has reemerged. And so the captain has to bring the crew back together. And it's really a game about trying to learn how to trust each other again, how to regain that loyalty. What does redemption mean? All from different perspectives of the crew. And there's a chance that you might not survive the final mission. So I've been in a few games where no one made it, and I've been in a few where everyone made it, but just the skin of our teeth. So it's a really, really super exciting game, and it's based on the Firebrand system. So I mentioned that briefly. Firebrands was first. Oh, I'm going to do the full title. I'm trying to not say Mobile Suit Gundam. Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands by Megway and Vincent Baker. And it's a really, really good game, really excellent system. It spawns so many hacks, including The King is Dead, which is also by the Bakers, and lots of other great games. And so it's a system that focuses on roleplay, that provides you different prompts and questions, and is made up of mini games, which is what we'll be talking about today. And that's basically Once More Into the Void. Did I forget anything important, Jason?
other than the fact that it's diceless.
Ooh, yeah.
And I mean, I can never always the lines between Firebrand's framework and outside belonging are weird to me. I like because there's tokens moving around too.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
It's a little muddled in my head. But yeah, no. It is an amazing and super evocative game. And I ran into it on itch. I think I backed one of a billion or so bundles, where Once More Into the Void was included. I read through it, and literally halfway through the game, I was thinking, wow, this needs to get published. And it came to my attention that, oh, no, people from the Philippines can't run Kickstarters.
Oh.
You know what? I'm not from the Philippines. I think I could probably fix this problem. So I got in touch with Jamie, and we started scheming. And those schemes have worked out pretty well so far. So we're co-publishing it. Genesis of Legend Incorporated and Sword Queen Games are co-publishing this game. So the Kickstarter is going towards paying for existing development costs, art, printing, shipping, fulfillment, etc. And anything beyond that is going to Sword Queen Games to support future games by Jamie, because we need more games by Jamie.
Awesome. Yeah, I read the pitch for it and was like, oh, I'm in. Like I was like, oh yes, like, and then immediately like sent it out to not only Bob and Jerry, but I like sent it out to my other co-host on my other show, Senda, and I was like, oh my god, you gotta see this game. Like this is like right up our alley. Like so yeah, we've already played 2 sessions of it, so we're and we have more because we're slow. We talked about it pre-show, but we're slow. Like you're supposed to play the game. The game is playable in 2 sessions, I think is what you say, right? If you are not like a table full of like drama hounds who are hell bent on playing every scene like word for word, I see how it could be played in 2 sessions.
Oh, yeah, we got into some very good interpersonal drama that led to some good quotes, and we milked every scene for as much as we could based on the prompts that you gave us and had a ball with them. So
yeah, so we're gonna play it as a campaign. We're gonna play it as a campaign. That's what's gonna happen here.
Great.
Yeah. So oh yeah, I mean like I fell in love with it the second I saw it. Like as soon as I read the premise, I was like, oh, I'm in. Like it's like good. And then of course Jason. So I mean look, there's a couple things here. 1, we love Jason, but 2, like Genesis Legend runs great Kickstarters. So there's a very high degree of confidence. Like it's it's a no-brainer for me when it comes to Jason's Kickstarters. So, and the 2 of you teamed up, is even better. So on that note, tell us about the Kickstarter, like how it's arranged and like what's going on, stretch goals, things like that.
So the Kickstarter is a relatively simple one. It's got the standard, here's a PDF, here's a book. Here's a retailer tier. Okay, those are bog standard. But what we've been doing and what we've been trying to work on especially is ensure that it's accessible to as many people as possible. So we have a robust community copy system. And by robust, I mean a $1 Canadian pledge, which is roughly a nickel American, will get you the complete PDF of the final game if you need it. And we have an unlimited number of those. We also have a limited number of $10 Canadian community copies. So it's $10 plus shipping, which is effectively at cost of manufacturing. We have a limited number of slots, but we have a deluxe level called the Galactic Bank, which is in addition to getting yourself a PDF, getting yourself a printed book, you also fund a community copy. And we've had a ton of people who've been signing up and pitching in to make this possible, which is really a testament to the backers. We've got 50 people who have actively chosen to pay a bit more so that people from marginalized backgrounds and suffering economic hardship are able to get to the game.
It's fantastic.
So
yeah.
we're super proud about that.
And Jason knows how important community copies are to me, because it's something that started up on the itch.io scene among designers, where we wanted to try to make the games as accessible as possible. And each designer has their own approach to community copies if they choose to go that way. But it's a really great way to be more inclusive and to really invite more people into the conversation and to play with each other, which is the most important thing, right? To have more people playing games.
Yeah, that's great. And I honestly, I'll be honest with you, I appreciate a simple Kickstarter. Like, I like, to me, simple Kickstarter also tells me like this will be fulfilled in a pretty straightforward manner, which I, also appreciate, right? The project manager in me, which
I am just coming off of the heels of my last Kickstarter.
Yes.
So I was unwilling to be too enthusiastic about extended stretch goals, because I have enough project management under my belt to recognize it.
Scope creep will get you every time.
Yep. We're not trying to be agile here.
No,
we're planning this stuff out right up front. Minimal stretch goals. We actually only have 2 stretch goals. So our base goal, which we've met, is the standard edition.
Mm-hmm.
This will produce a beautiful, professionally printed, full color, 8.5 by 8.5 hardcover book.
Mm.
So it's going to be sort of the same footprint as Cartel.
Okay.
Or Bluebeard's Bride, sort of that.
Sure.
Because we wanted to let the text breathe, and a lot of the mini games are the kinds of things that you want to really put on one spread.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And one indie standard spread isn't enough to comfortably include all that content.
Oh, I like that. So the idea will be just to have the game, have the book at the table.
8.5 by 17 spread. That is you put it down, and that's your mini game.
Nice.
That's solid.
Yeah.
And that's including art for each of the mini games, and by the fantastic artist Camille Chua. We have already covered off the cover from Brain.
Ooh, Adrian Valdez. Yeah.
Thank you. So we already have that. It's covering off professional editing. We've got Avery Alder doing some design consultation.
Nice.
Since it isn't good enough, let's also drag Avery in. So our first stretch goal is the extended edition, where we will commission additional illustrations and add 3 new mini games.
Ooh.
Which I'll let Jamie talk about.
Nice.
We're going to tease one of them in the segment, right? Okay, cool.
And then stretch goal 2 is the legendary edition. So along each of these editions is also coming with larger print run, allowing us to get better quality at lower prices.
Sure.
We're actually currently planning on using some local Canadian printers, and I actually have this is such a game publisher thing. I have a professional and personal relationship with a bindery relatively close to me, so I'm working with them and the relevant printer to be able to produce these. So that is also going to include additional crew members. So 2 additional playbooks.
Mhm.
And the most exciting little element is that we're also allocating a bit of money to buy all the crew members of our little Kickstarter copies of Mass Effect Legendary Edition for perfectly legitimate research purposes.
Yeah,
Research.
There you go,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
And self-care, because editing and layout and stuff takes a lot out of you. So, also important to emphasize good self-care for the team.
Yep.
Absolutely, so true.
And
so true.
everything beyond that is going straight to Sword Queen Games, so that Jamie can continue to publish amazing games. And yeah, so that is fundamentally the goal. We wanted to make sure that Jamie's games could get out in the world as broadly as possible, get enjoyed by the most number of people possible, and give them the tools necessary to succeed on future projects.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Because as Jason pointed out before, like the first Once More Into the Void was made on $0. So it would be, this is the first time that I've got to work with artists, and I got to work with other people and like editors and consultants. So it'd be really, really great to continue to be able to like work and collaborate on bigger and better things. That would be super fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's I love it. I love it. And I saw on Twitter, I've seen the tweets go by of the book. So are those mock-ups, or is that an actual actual print one?
Those are mock-ups.
Okay, they're nice looking mock-ups, by the way. Like, but the book looks fantastic. The cover looks amazing. The page spreads, like, it looks really good, and I really like your choice of artist. Your choice of artist for it, really good. Like, it's really cool sci-fi imagery.
Yeah. I was so happy with Adrian Valdez, who funny story. My partner met Adrian in a bookstore, and they talked about Masks: A New Generation. That's how they met. And so to be able to work with Adrian is really, really great. And Camille Chua for the interior art has been fantastic. And what's great is both have actually played Mass Effect. So they understood all the references. Like the first few emails I sent, I was like, oh, this character, I won't go into too much detail. They're like, oh no, I love Tally. She's one of my favorites. I was like, perfect.
Fantastic. All right, cool. So we're going to have a link for the Kickstarter in
also,
the show.
Easy for the audience. It's at kickstarter.games. Just go to kickstarter.games.
Yep.
Right, I forgot you have that. Right, I totally forgot.
Smart thinking by Jason. Let's make it super uber simple.
Smart thinking. Yeah, kickstarter.games. Like, that's not going to be hard to remember. Yes, brilliant. So the Kickstarter runs, how long does the campaign go till? It's a 30-day campaign.
Right. One other very important thing.
Yes.
If you back the game for any amount, you get to instantly access the itch version of the game.
Okay.
And, if something comes up, money, it becomes a problem, or it's just not your cup of tea, keep the PDF.
Very nice. Very nice. And the PDF's great. I have the PDF because we've been playing it.
Yep.
And it's great. And it's completely playable. Like, you can play the game. Like, you can play it like right now. It's really good. Like, we're playing it. It's fantastic. But Jason, just because we're recording on one night and it drops on another, what's the actual end date for the campaign?
The end date should be the 11th of June, 2021.
Gotcha.
Because this is also a podcast, I had to say the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because at some point, yes.
Yeah.
When they unearth these somewhere, some data vault. Yes. Cool. All right, good. All right, so that's an intro to the game. That's we covered the Kickstarter. What we're gonna do now, which we love to do when we have other designers on the show, is to actually get a little geeky and talk about some, in this case, we're gonna talk about some mechanical stuff in the garage segment. We're gonna specifically be talking about mini games. Bob?
All right, here, let me see if I can get the garage open.
Access granted.
There we go.
All right. Tonight, in honor of our guests and Jamila's game, What's More to the Void, we're going to talk about mini games. Specifically, we're going to talk about what they are, what they do in games, and excuse me, how to make them work when you're running your game. For obvious reasons, we're going to be focusing a lot on the mini games of What's More to the Void as our examples. But Phil, in order to get us started, you can tell us a little bit about what a mini game is.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. A mini game is a self-contained set of rules within the greater rules of the game that are used to determine the mechanical and narrative outcomes for a specific circumstance, action, or scene. Typically, they use a different set of rules from the core rules of the game, if a game has a set of core rules, because Once More into the Void is a bit of an exception to that. But we're going to talk about some other, we'll highlight some other games that have mini games in them as well. And the rules are often tailored to emulate a certain type of action or scene, and are often done so because the core rules don't really land in that space, right? So this becomes a very like highly tailored rules package that is there to deliver a particular type of effect.
All right. Now we have some idea what a mini game is. Let's talk about some of the games that use them. So, question number 1, what are some games, including Once More into the Void, that use mini games, and what mini games do they contain?
Yeah, so actually, Once More into the Void, we talked about this briefly. It's based on the Firebrand system. I don't know if that's the official name. Jason says like
Firebrand's framework. I've heard is the official name.
Nice. Yeah, perfect. So, and so there's some really great games that I mentioned, like The King is Dead, Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands, which started the whole thing. And so both of these games call the entire game manual a playbook, right? And so Vincent and Megway have talked about how the Firebrands framework is actually powered by the Apocalypse also. So, but we could go on forever if we go into that design route, right? If we talk about that and take that apart. So basically, the idea is that each minigame is part of everyone's playbook. So everyone has this like menu or table of contents they can refer to on which minigames they can pick up. So in a lot of these hacks, and you can find quite a lot in Itch.io, there are like a few dozen really fun ones. So they'll use popular minigames like a conversation over food, a dance, stealing time together, and so on. So personally, a few Firebrand game hacks that I really like are Dragon Hearts by Alex Rascura Guerrero, which is about like, it's this mythical place with dragons who can take on like anthropomorphic form or human form. And there's like this whole ritual romance thing going on. And then also They Came to Play Ball by Adira Slattery. I really love that one. And They Came to Play Ball is basically, it explained what baseball is to me, like that whole phenomena, right? And then it just went all out. So the game is really great. You play these monstrous baseball players. And it's very, very good stuff. It's super, super fun. So those are some of my favorites. I'm technically cheating. That's like a lot of mini games per game, but those are my favorites.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, they're just all small examples of the mini game genre, which is the larger genre. So it's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Ooh, I do want to. It just came off the top of my head. I also want to mention, you can check out Anytime, but You Can Never Leave, which is like, so each mini game is a title from an 80s song. Right? Oh, so it's really
interesting.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's this whole horror thing where you like, it's inspired by The Shining and stuff like that. You go to a hotel, but you can't leave. One of you can play a monster. It's really good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
That sounds fun. I'm old. I would like that.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, my particular interest in game design is the combination of mini games and asymmetrical game design. Those two bits together are absolutely fascinating for me. So I turned my mind to Swords Without Master.
No, that is a game
which I feel is a very strong contender for mini games. Mm-hmm. In that the discovery phase, perilous phase, and rogue phase each represent completely different areas of the narrative, different styles of the play experience and different moments, and you move between them as appropriate.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
So
And each one has a very distinct set of procedures designed to produce a very distinctive feel. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was I know it wasn't the first one, but to my heart, it's the first.
No, I mean, I respect it. I respect your choice. I mean, I think we're huge Swords Without Masters fans. Like
Very much so.
We've played a lot of Swords Without Masters, so I wholeheartedly agree with you. Your analysis I'm spot on with you. For me, one of the ones that sprung to mind, and this one's I think a fairly old reference, is Burning Wheel has mini games for pretty much for regular combat, for range combat, for social combat. Like those are all their own packaged mini games, and it's sometimes one of those things that people find daunting about learning Burning Wheel. I mean, I think there's a number of things daunting about learning Burning Wheel, but the mini games are one of those things that sometimes hang up people. And then if you want to get to the advanced class, I think you can just go play Burning Empires, right? That's it's Burning Wheel on steroids.
Yep. Although I will actually note the other element of Burning Empires that is interesting. It's a different axis of minigame because there's a very strong scene economy of different kinds of scenes. So this is a color scene. This is a character scene. This is a plot scene, I think. And you have a limited number of those that you can pick between. So you're simultaneously saying, we're going to be doing a duel of wits, and we're doing it in a plot scene.
Yeah, it's a game. So yeah, it's a game that I've never actually gotten to the table. I was fortunate enough to actually play it at Gen Con the year it came out. But it also got me turned on to the graphic novels, and I love those graphic novels. Like the Burning Empire graphic novels are fantastic.
We've played a combination of Burning Empires and Diaspora. And those two games, we had 2 GMs for it and 6 players.
Wow.
It was just as heavy lifting as you would think.
That sounds pretty heavy lifting.
Which is actually the genesis of Fate of the Galaxy, the galactic space opera game that Genesis of Legend is also working on right now. And is
in other words, a future reason when Jason's on the show.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay, so that was my example was Burning Wheel. Jerry, how about you?
For me, actually, one of my favorite mini game sessions came from surprisingly a non-indie game. The Pathfinder Adventure Path that had Shadow in the Sky ends with the players running a casino, and all of the games, the casino, running the casino, and were all standard little mini games, which were kind of imported into other sessions later on. So as the players got involved with the actual casino itself, there were lots of little games they could play to stimulate that were not just card games. There were a table that insulted you, and some dice games, and some other things that were in there that just kind of kept the game flowing without taking you out of the mechanic of the whole scenario, which was fun, and I like it. I don't know if it's in the new edition of Pathfinder, but it was in the original one, so it was kind of nice. So after that, we'll say now we've got some examples. Let's ask, how does a new game work as a mechanic?
Sure.
Bill?
Yeah, let's break it down a little here. The minigame starts during normal play when something triggers its use. And that trigger could be a couple different things, right? So it could be a narrative trigger, right? Like in case of like Burning Wheel, like all of a sudden we're about to have a duel of wits, right? The narrative kind of leads us into the minigame. It could be mechanical. The mechanics of play, such as a die roll or an outcome of a skill check, may engage a minigame. Or it could be procedural, right? The procedures of the game determine that a minigame is to be engaged. And I think that is true for Once More Into the Void, as well as Swords Without Master. Procedurally, when you end one scene, you need to start the next one. So once a minigame is engaged, it is its own set of rules. And it starts with how to set up the minigame. It will, inside of it, it will tell you how to play the game. And that can involve both narrative and mechanical play. Often has its own set of procedures, tells you kind of how to proceed through it. And the rules will describe how the minigame is concluded. So there'll be an end condition by which you can exit out of the minigame. And then the outcome of the minigame gets expressed into the narrative of what's going on. And if your game has core rules, then the game would move back into the core rules and play would resume along that path until the next minigame is engaged. So, having said all that, our question for Jamie, for Once More Into the Void, can you give us an example of one of the minigames and kind of break down like how it's played and the mechanics that go behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the Firebrand games suggest that you start with a specific game, right? So usually this helps establish setting, lore, or the current situation. Sorry, my partner's playing and it's echoing through our tiny apartment. Anyway, so usually it helps set up things, right? So for people to jump into it. So in the case of Once More Into the Void, the first minigame is the recruitment montage, which is always like one of my favorite parts of like any of these kind of stories, right? And so after the players have decided what archetype they'll pick up and play, like which of the playbooks they'll pick up, the captain has to recruit each member of the crew. So let's say the Reformed is one of the playbooks chosen, and you then play the minigame, The Hunt. So each time you recruit a member, there's sort of like an understanding of where you find them or what's going on for them, which is very open to interpretation, right? So the Reformed is running away from something because the Reformed used to be the enemy. They served the Void in some capacity, but they betrayed all of it for the captain, and then the captain left. The captain left everybody behind. So since then, the Reformed has been on the run, right? So the game starts, this particular mini game starts with the captain and the Reformed asking each other a few establishing questions to help build the scene. And like I said, it's supposed to be quick and easy, but as some groups like it, they really get into it, right? But anyway, so the captain chooses from there a list of possible situations they could be in. So looking at the options, let's say the captain decides to choose innocent bystanders are caught up in our chase, ... And then it's up to the player who's playing the Reformed to decide what happens with those innocent bystanders, like what's going on. So the choices that the Reformed has are 3 prompts, which are, and I stop you from sacrificing yourself to save them. They're not worth it. Or, and I risk us getting captured, and I'll always choose the common good. And the last option is, and I beg you to leave them behind. No one is truly innocent in this war.
So
right?
cold.
Yeah, exactly. And so like what I really like about that is when the captain chooses which scene, the rest of the table looks at the Reformed like, well, what's the answer, right? Because when you choose an answer, you are establishing who you are as characters, who the other person is as a character, what's going on in the scene. So it's evocative because it's trying to like cram in, well, I don't want to say cram it. I feel like it's not that, but it's trying to like open up, right? A lot of potential, a lot of like backstory in just those few prompts. And so the players are encouraged to roleplay as much as they like, to feel out their characters and relationships, and the prompts and questions do a lot to help that out. And so then the next part of the game is just the Reformed chooses one, and then now the captain chooses how to resolve it, right? So it's just supposed to be 2 moments in the recruitment montage, and then the player asks one more set of questions. So in this case, the captain asks, what will make you betray me? And the Reform asks in turn, but what makes you trust me anyway, right? And so that's going to like create this line between the 2. And the hunt, this part of the recruitment montage ends with a loyalty draw, a consistent mechanic that's in every minigame of Once More Into the Void. And once a card is drawn from a regular poker deck, we see how much loyalty we gained from the scene. Then we go to the next crew member who's going to be recruited. So the recruitment montage is like a nesting doll of like mini games within the mini game within the game. So it's a lot of fun.
That was our whole first session.
Yeah.
All the
Just the recruitment.
Yeah.
all just the recruitment.
Yeah,
One
we
of
had
the
like
things,
almost 4 hours of just recruitment.
Oh
But I
my
have to
gosh,
say-
amazing.
And I'll be honest, I think that what I liked about not just recruitment, but the way all the mini games build, and I think you explained it really well here, was that as the game goes, while you've designed your character, every session gives you a chance to really explore that character's personality that's in that, and the relationship to the event, and the relationship to the crew. And so you're constantly building more dramatic characters that really kind of flesh out and live and play off each other. And I think that I really like the way that the mini games really enforce that and make that work.
Yeah.
And
I
make it
was
both
really
a game and a role playing thing. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say I was super inspired by because I played a lot of Firebrands. It's one of the easiest games to pick up and play. It's also like my gateway game for people like, oh, you've never heard of role playing games? You know, this one just takes a few hours to play. We could try it, right? So I played a lot of Firebrands games with people, and what I like about the games in general is that it encourages you to create so much character within the moment, like within the scene, what makes sense. But for Once More Into the Void, I really wanted to like really lean into that because even though I love Mass Effect so much, when I was watching Star Trek Picard, I was like, wow, these characters are carrying so much history, right? Like even if you haven't watched Voyager, if you don't know who Seven of Nine is, when she shows up in the series, you're like, wow, you can feel the history that's just on her shoulders, right? It's so cool. So I wanted an entire game built around that for sure.
one of the things I love about the loyalty draw in the recruitment montage is the last line. So after you draw the card and you figure out how many tokens you get, the last line of it is the character who's recruited decides how to share the tokens.
Yeah.
And I love that it is a way of also communicating like where this relationship is. Like, are you going to give the captain any of the tokens? Are you keeping them for yourself? Like, are you going to share them? Like, you know, will you split them if you have more? Because you can get more than one. So will you split them? And there's a lot of subtext that goes on with what choice you make.
I had a broken who was like, I'm never taking any tokens because you're never going to get my loyalty. Like that happened the first few mini games. It was super dramatic.
Yeah, I think I lucked out. I think everybody gave me a token.
Nice.
Like,
good job, Captain.
I don't think I maybe somebody didn't. I can't remember. Maybe one player didn't give me a token, but I think almost everybody gave me one token. Never more than one, right? Just one token.
Yeah, one person only got one token and they kept it for themselves.
Oh yeah.
and what's really fun is that in one of the other missions that we played, Bob's character lost a token as one of the results. But because of the relationship that we had in the game, I got a token and gave it to him as a loyalty because even though he lost a token, he'd also shown through character that showed that his character got loyalty for me. So there was a lot of shifting loyalties and relationships in that one scene because of what we did as we played and what the different prompts led us to go to, which were really amazing. So that was a lot of fun. It just built for dramatic scene. So.
Yeah, and it's a really nice mechanic, and of course because I've read through the game, like I know where the tokens show up at the end, right? So it's really good because there'll be consequences, right? Like how those who has those tokens and how they got distributed will have a lasting effect at the end of the game, which I think is fantastic, right? Like in its way, it is also a form of foreshadowing.
Right. Which I feel like is apparent when you watch these shows or play these games. Like there's a sense of death flags, right? That's attached to a character. Like, ooh, so that's which is also based on Mass Effect 2 because you can also gain loyalty, and if you don't gain it, they don't survive the final mission. But you can also mess up. I'm spoiling a game, but anyway, like it's been around for a while, long enough. But yeah. So, but basically, even if you gain their loyalty, if you make bad decisions as a captain, right, as Commander Shepard, you could also lose them. So it's really high stakes, that game, which I wanted to translate into this one.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the translation's great.
Hey, before we move on, we've got a great question from Andy in the chat room. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tokens? Can we expand on that a little?
Oh yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the token economy of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very straightforward. The tokens are attached to every time you draw a card at the end of a minigame, the loyalty draw. And so let me read out an example. Ooh, I thought I had it open. But basically, when you draw one, depending on what you draw, if it's an ace or if it's a number, that's how many tokens that you earn. Anywhere between like 0 to, you can earn all the way up to 3 tokens. And then the game also says who decides who distributes the tokens between the players who are present in the minigame.
And then I don't think it ruins anything because you can read it in the game, but what happens with the tokens when you get to the end?
Oh yeah, dun dun dun. So basically the last game is called Once More Into the Void. So I just like having the title of the game being the last minigame just to really set the stakes. So in Once More Into the Void, in the last minigame, you basically have to face these different challenges, and with each challenge you have to draw cards to see how bad the challenge is, right? So and then depending on like what card you draw, that's how many tokens you have to pay. And if you don't have the tokens, you have just a few options, which is you can ask someone else to pay those tokens for you to help you out in the situation from their loyalty, right? They'll come in and save you, or you'll have to perish, like die in the moment really dramatically if you want, or you'll mysteriously disappear, right? So the thing is, it's really tight because you have these tokens, but you don't know how it's going to play out as you draw a card. I remember the first time we play tested it, we were down to the last challenge, down to the last card, and we were like, okay, if we get this one, if I draw this card, I'll have exactly enough tokens to pay. But if I don't, we're screwed because these are the last tokens we have, right? So, but we made it barely. It was super, super great. And so what's great is after the game just doesn't end there though, because if you choose to die, perish, or someone else helps you, there's also a different set of epilogue that you have, right? Depending on what happens next. So there are also some interesting prompts. But oh, hello, Kitty! I'm so distracted by the gorgeous cat.
Sai has joined the podcast with Jerry.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Yeah, it's I know. I'm like, as soon as I read the end game, I was like, oh, this is great. This is this has all the feelings of, are they going to make it? Will they die in a shower of console sparks? Like that's our favorite Star Trek trope, like console sparks and they're dead.
Exactly. I love it so much. That's really what I was trying to go for. And every single time that we played this last game, it's always been like a nail biter. It's always been really good. Even the ones where we made it. Recently I went on Twitter and someone was like, yeah, I remember when we made the game. I was like, yeah, but we all survived in the end. And they were like, but at what cost? Right?
Right. Yeah.
I was the captain and I lost almost everything. And I was like, whoa, we played like a year ago, right? And they're still carrying that story, which I really love.
That's the best.
That. You're going to build that kind of storyline in this thing. So that's what really works on it. So,
yeah. All right, Jer. We mentioned this above. I thought we could expand on it. What does a minigame do for us in the greater scope of a game?
Well, basically what a minigame is going to do is going to create a tailored set of rules. They're going to help you emulate either an action or some sort of situation. Then the exact play experience is going to have a lot to do with what the minigame emulates. The minigame is about wrestling cattle from one location to another, like an aces and eights. And the play experience should be about the challenge of moving a herd from one place to another, making sure cattle don't wander off, defending the herd from predators, making sure you keep an accurate count, and so on and so forth. Which means that the game is that little mini game is going to simulate that particular section, which the rest of the rules might not necessarily have initially, but allow you to very smoothly move into that part of the story and then move back to the rest of the game afterwards. So, with that in mind, of all the mini games that Once More to the Void, which one is your favorite in terms of the play experience it creates? Can you tell us how it's structured to do that?
Yeah, so this is I'm glad we had a script for me to look at beforehand because I really thought about it. I spent like 30 minutes really thinking about it. So it's so hard to pick a favorite minigame. If I had to choose, right, for now, which one my favorite is, it's Only If We Have the Time, Captain. And so fans of Mass Effect will know that If you get close enough to your crewmates, they will open up and let you know that they have a loyalty mission that you can go on, like a side quest that you can do in order to ensure you gain their loyalty, that you complete their story arc before you go into the final mission. And usually what they say, like after the dialogue, is like, oh, but only if they have the time, Captain, right? So I had to include that. And the loyalty missions are really important about establishing a character's past or helping them work through something important. And it's one of my favorite parts in Mass Effect 2. I wanted to emulate that. And so this minigame, compared to the other ones in Once More Into the Void, is a little more complex. Like there are a few more stages. So you start by approaching the captain, and the instruction is, I draw a card and describe the mission I need to go on. This is your chance to prove your loyalty to me, Captain. I tell you what's at stake if we should fail. So let's say, for example, I draw the Ace of Clubs. And so the guide within the minigame tells me that with a clubs card, it's a mission that is focused on violence, passion, or rediscovering my fire, and how I choose to reinterpret that, right? Like, what does it mean? Like, which one am I going to go for? I would argue that like Zaid maybe from from Mass Effect 2 could be that, but it depends. And then with an ace, it means I failed the last time I tried to go on this mission, and I'll show the captain the scars from it. So that gives the player a chance to be like, well, what scar do they have? Did they establish the scar before this moment? If they didn't, that means it was hidden like somewhere, and now they're going to show it to the captain. So that's a lot of fun. And from there are 4 stages to the minigame in total. And as you play through the minigame, you come to the deciding moment, right? Like, how did the mission actually play out? And you have to draw 3 cards to describe the arc of the mission and how it goes. And so, for example, for this particular one, the options could be, if you pull a spades, I choose one of us is badly wounded. What obvious scar does it leave? Or you can choose, we're betrayed by someone or something. Why won't we believe it? And depending on, I had a game where like someone pulled 3 spade cards. Like it was like an intense moment for sure. And then from there, you also get to decide what happened, right? The highest card from the one you draw decides if the mission was a success or failure. And there's like a slight like success or a complicated success, or success and then some part to it. In that same game where we pulled 3 spades, we failed the mission. That was really an intense game in that one in particular. And yeah, so in the playtest of this game, and every time I played the game so far with other people, it feels really similar to the loyalty mission from Mass Effect 2, but with more depth and nuance, which is the joy of what a TTRPG can do. And it's always been fun. It's really my favorite. It's currently my favorite. I may change my mind tomorrow, but yeah, that's it. If only we have the time, Captain.
So we got to play that.
Yeah, that.
Oh, how did it go? How did it go?
It was great. Bob and I were in that scene together, going to get Bob's. So Bob's are reformed. So we were in order to get more intelligence, we were going to rescue Bob's mate, who is still on who was still on the home world of our enemy, right? And so so we went on the mission, and during the mission,
Gorgon was on that mission too, because that's how we shared the loyalty token.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. That's right. You came with us because we needed security, because we knew that it was going to get messy.
Yeah.
But during that mission, there was like a moment where the two of us, where Bob's character and I were alone, and I wound up telling him that I've always trusted you. Like, if something happens to me on this mission, I want you to take over and lead. I want you to be second in command. Like, we had this whole moment in the middle of it as we were getting ready to find his mate and get her off the planet, of just having this little moment of, because in our backstory, not to get too deep into our game, but in our backstory, it's Bob's character who comes to me with the information about this weapon of mass destruction. And I'm like, okay, I'm in, let's do this. And then it all goes sideways. But I've never blamed him, and never blamed him for it. Like, I totally believed the intel and all, what he brought. So there was our moment of me saying, look, I never stopped trusting you.
Oh yeah, so cool, so cool.
Yeah. Now, I will say, just so that if people are listening, that minigame is the largest minigame in the game. Like that four-part, like most of the other minigames are more compact than that. They still have basically the same kind of structure, but that one in particular has probably the most mechanics in it.
Yeah. Like even the final game isn't as complex as this one.
But it also plays very smoothly. Like we had no problem just like zipping through it, other than the fact that we stopped and played out every card flip.
Yeah. Perfect.
Alrighty, good.
All right. So with that, let's take a break and check with the chat room. Before we do, Bob, how about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network?
Yeah, I would like to talk to you about a little ditty called the Gnome Cast. Several gnomes from Gnome Stew get together to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and to avoid being thrown in the stew pot. Do you think they can avoid being thrown in the stew? Listen and find out.
Alrighty. How's our chat room doing? They look chatty tonight.
Chat room's good. They've been following along. We only got a little off track. Senda took exception to the question of which one is your favorite. It's like, how do you choose between your children? Which one is your favorite?
Exactly. It's so hard.
It's such a cruel question to ask.
It really is like, what's your favorite comma in the moment, right? Because I think, like Jeremy said, like there are moments, I think, when you design games where you fall in love with one of your mechanics, and then like just it either goes right in play testing where you're just like, oh, like it's so doing the thing it's done, I love it, and then like later you'll just love another part of it for another reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's also harder because there's 3 more children that are currently hatching.
Yes.
So maybe one of them will be your favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think through the entire design of the initial design of Hydra Hackers, I fell in love with every one of the playbooks at one point. Like at one point, every playbook was my favorite playbook in the game. And I don't even know if I have one anymore, but like full circle, like at one point or another, every playbook was at some point my favorite.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you I don't know, like I know it was an unfair question, but I don't know. I didn't think, I mean, you handled it wonderfully. Like
it's also a very common
It
question.
prompted good much like the mini games, it prompted good discussion. So
Exactly.
Oh, and I'll just ask so that people know, like, how many mini games are there?
Right. So right now there are 9 mini games. If we hit our first stretch goal, we will have 3 more, which I'm very excited about. I already have some ideas.
By the time you're listening to this, we've probably hit that stretch goal according to our trajectory.
I feel pretty good about that.
But go and pledge anyway.
If you're watching live,
yes,
go pledge.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Get out there. Go.
Yeah.
We'll wait for you. No. Yeah, and I think what's really neat is the mini games are very they're very tropey scenes, like in this genre. Like they're very much they're very much in that. Like as soon as I saw them, like, oh, I can totally see the scene. Like the scene, like I've seen the scene in all sorts of sci-fi media before, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've talked about this on the show before. The tropes are a really nice hook into getting people into the right narrative space.
Exactly.
Like, people jump right in there, like, oh, I know right where I'm supposed to be in here, and I know what I have a good feel for the tone and everything. So yeah.
No, that's a good point, because like I'm working on a Forge in the Dark game, which is a political social intrigue game, very high, weird, surreal fantasy, and it doesn't lean on tropes as much, and it's harder for people to like get into the space, right? So I think that's why tropes and RPGs like just meld so beautifully, because people are like, oh yeah, wait, I think I know where we're going, and you can really make it your own, right? It's just a starting point. So but yeah, absolutely. Like there's a favorite for a lot of people in Once More Into the Void is Only One Shot to Make It Right, the training montage. And so it's actually been hacked, like people have put into their superhero games, which I really love. So it's been really cool.
Oh, we totally did so we did that one because we went right with your suggestion, and we were like, let's do this one first. And oh yeah, like, and again, having I mean, for people who've been listening to the show know that like I've been watching nothing but a year of Star Trek. Like as like even the prompts, I'm like, oh, that one was on Enterprise, like
exactly.
that. Yeah. They're great. Like and it was perfect. And it was really good because we've all been watching Star Trek all year together. So the shorthand that it took us to kind of fall into each one of those like little mini scenes in the middle of the game, in the middle of that mini game, it was really easy. Like it was really fast.
So awesome. I'm so glad.
And evoked a lot of interesting situations that involved bringing some stuff out of our characters that we were not aware of yet, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's really the fun of the prompt. I want the prompts to be something like, "Ooh, this is a new thing about my character that I want to introduce." That's what I was hoping to achieve.
And I really like that. The first player picks the first part, the second player picks the second part. It's really like it's really good. Like the combination of those two always wind up being really interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Because I notice in some other Firebrand games, what happens is it's just one person by themselves who like says what's going on in the scene. But I like it when it's more. I think it's also, if you look at the game, it draws a lot from my GM style and like what I've learned as a GM. So a lot of the questions that I would ask as a GM, I like put into this game. Right? So
yeah, and they're fantastic. Like they're fantastic leading questions to kind of like drag you into certain spaces to have to talk about your character.
I was gonna say this whole game could be called leading questions.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a compliment because I really like leading questions. I think that they always create better role playing experiences. I think that's part of what this has done. Also, I would say that if you're a GM who is not comfortable with leading questions or not sure what they would be, this game would be a wonderful primer for what kind of questions to put in front of your players that prompt role playing as opposed to yes no answers. And a good way to you could take what's in Once More Into the Void and shift it to another genre and use the same kinds of questions to really build a strong player group that will also help to answer the question, why are these 5 miscreants bothering to be a party together? And I think it's really good, which is something that a lot of games need.
Yeah.
And I think this game does a really great job. I would use this as a primer for other games if I found myself with a group of players who, for some reason, weren't gelling their characters together. This would be a good one night run through with their characters, because by the end of it, you're going to know why they're together. And just scrap the part where they all might die at the end, you're all set.
Yeah, exactly. Just take what parts you need. Actually, I've had people do that where they've been playing, let's say, Last Fleet or Impulse Drive, and they just take one of the mini games, right? And then they just go back and forth. So this becomes like what we were talking about, where it draws directly into another game, which I think is fun. I'm probably going to include it in the final book, like as a suggestion that you can do that for your other games.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think was it one time we were just messing around and talking about using For the Queen as the opening to a Swords Without Master game.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Like just get to the end, like get to the final question of For the Queen and then be like, cool, now pick up the dice because here we go. We're playing Swords Without Master.
Yeah.
So cool. I mean, so for my game Palanquin, I actually have a section in the back. So Palanquin is all about escorting the heir to safety, escorting her from a palace coup. So there's the For the Queen, what does the heir grow up into? And there was, what was the other one? Kingdom.
Yeah.
And you could actually just play D&D with all of the adults who were the wizard and the veteran who were helping the heir escape. How did they get there? What were they doing before?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
I was like, like patching together different games is fast.
That's our next tier design, right? Is to start patching each other's games together and making like mega games, like making campaigns out of that.
Bob, put a pin in that. That's not a bad topic.
Ding.
Yeah. One of my favorite campaigns right now is we switch between 3 games, but we're all in the same campaign. It's one narrative. And so sometimes players will switch characters, other times they won't, but the characters in different systems. So it's really fun.
I like that.
And I mean, that's also super interesting when you look at things like the World of Darkness.
Yeah.
Where the games are all hooked into each other, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, that'll be some good discussion fodder.
Yeah.
But yes, we should continue on because
You are correct.
All right.
yes.
So let's jump back into a discussion about mini games. Let's discuss how to get the most of running the mini games that are in the games themselves. So
Yeah.
First, how to leverage in play. Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Mini games are a great way to evoke specific feelings or emulate things of importance in a game. Therefore, it is important when running or facilitating those mini games, we have good experiences with them, right? We want them to play well. We want to get a lot out of them. So my question out to the group is, and we'll start with our guests, is what are some of your tips for getting the most out of mini games?
Yeah, so I have two tips that I'd like to share. Wow, what's going on with my cats today? So one is for mini games in general, and the second one is more specific to the Firebrand system. So for one, the first one, if the mini game is really different from the rest of the game, if it really takes you out and puts you into a new perspective, sets new stakes, and so on, I would say lean into that. I've seen players where they're like a little worried because they're like, oh, suddenly I have new rules, or suddenly this is different, or what's going on. Sometimes it pulls you out and you play a different character. I would argue, for example, that Godsend, the PPTA game, does something similar where you're switching back and forth between different characters, between being a god and being between an avatar, and and each one has its own set of like mini games, I would argue. And so my tip is just to completely lean into it. Don't worry about like getting the specifics completely right. What's more important is that you have a strong narrative, a strong role play moment that you're really happy about. And the second tip I have is specific to the Firebrand system. And I find that it's an unspoken strength of the system that doesn't always take advantage of. So like by the 12th time I played a Firebrand's game, I noticed like when I was playing, I would always ask myself, what has changed about my character in between minigames? So if you play the same static and consistent character throughout all the minigames, you're missing out on a lot of the magic of the system. Like if you're only sticking to like one very strong idea or emotion or how you feel about something, if something doesn't shift dramatically for you from game to game, you're missing out on what the Firebrand's framework can do for you. And I'm planning on stressing that aspect for the game and making it more explicit and Once More Into the Void with the newer version. And because I think the best games in the Firebrand framework are when you end up with a character that's completely different from where you started. Like the first time I played Once More Into the Void, I played a believer. And by the end, oh gosh, she went through so much. She fell in love twice. And the first one was the captain rejected her. The second one was the reformed who like sacrificed themselves to save the rest of us. And so my poor believer was so heartbroken. And it was a strong question of like, are you going to keep believing until the very end? It was really great. Yeah. It's a good song. But yeah, the game ended with the believer sort of becoming a villain though, because they didn't want to let go of the reformed. And so they did some things that they promised themselves they'd never do if it meant being able to get the reformed back. So that was a really cool moment for my character.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. For myself, my strongest piece of advice is to be sure to understand the purpose and the boundaries of the different mini games, because they are all different lenses that can be used to interpret the same events in radically different ways. So, for instance, I could say this is a scene where there's a sword fight between two characters. In one kind of minigame, this could be a heroic battle to slay a dire foe. In another one, it could be an opportunity for two passionate characters to flirt. In a third, it could actually be the fictional backdrop of a divorce. And they're all telling very different stories. So, in the same way that for a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, you have to use your subjective judgment to determine which move applies. Is this really a go aggro or a seize by force?
Sure.
The same principle and the same skill set comes forward when selecting which mini game is exploring the aspect of this action that I want to explore.
Yeah, that's I don't know what else to say to that. That's great. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that those sound like some really interesting sword fights that now I want to incorporate. So.
Hey, sword lesbians.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Thirsty Sword Lesbians is your game.
Yeah.
I own it, haven't played it yet. So, all right. For me, I would say that the big thing is try to be familiar with the mini game before it comes up, how it's going to work, and when the outcomes occur. Especially if you're running a game that the mini games aren't the only thing in the game. If you're going to suddenly shift gears into a new mechanic, it's always good to have at least one person who knows how it's going to be, so that you don't get bogged down too much when you're in a system and don't get taken out of the narrative by the mechanics of the game. Having somebody who's familiar with it and how it works, so that when the thing goes, you step right into it and keep moving the story forward, keeps you involved in the story instead of being involved in the mechanics, which are always excellent. And even though I know you've mentioned several times that these are 7 different mini games or 8 different mini games in, they're all similar enough that once you've played one, as soon as you get to the next one, it only takes 10, 15 seconds to scan them over and jump in. They're going to have very different results, and they might mechanically work differently, but the framework is the same. I think that's part of the strength of Once More Into the Void, is that you've got the ability to very quickly step into the next scene, step into the next scene, step into the next scene, and explore the game. And I think knowing what that is when you go through is important. So, Bill?
Yeah, I'm going to build a little off of that, which is that, and this will apply somewhat to virtual tabletops and online games, because you can totally do it for that. But I'm also thinking about, playing face to face again in the future. But and I do this for Swords Without Master, which is have handouts or something with the mini games, so that when you hit the mini game, you can put it out in front of everybody and quickly remind them of what the mini game is and how it goes. So like for Swords Without Master, I actually made these flow charts of the 3 different major scenes. And they're just with symbols. They don't even have words on them. They just have symbols and arrows, denoting like when the players pass the dice, when the players, like who rolls the dice, all of those things. But it's a really nice reference. Like when we switch and we're like, okay, now we're playing the perilous phase, to put the perilous phase graphic on the table or, up on the screen, so that everybody's like, okay, this is the mini game. Here's the outline. I know, like, here's where we are in it. Which is what I really liked when you said the book design being the 8x8, with it being able to open to the spread. You'll be able to do that exact same thing, right? Whoever's facilitating the game, or if you're passing the book around, or ideally if everyone has a book, you'll be able to just, put the book down flat and see the mini game. Because again, that's going to create some, that'll create some latency, some lag. If you are like, if everybody's like, okay, we're in this mini game, but like, how does the mini game go again? Like, what do we like? Right. Yeah. So just having those references out and accessible. And a lot of games have them. I know, like even Burning Wheel has sheets for their different mini games. There's like, I made the ones that I did for Swords Without Master just because I wanted something even simpler than having text, because I didn't want to read it. I just needed basically a guide to remind me, like, oh, in this game, the player holds the dice and then they roll them at this point, as opposed to they roll, like you hand them the dice and they roll immediately. So, yeah. So that little bit of visual prep with those mini games will help people be able to switch between them.
All right. Now let's talk about some of the problems that can be caused by mini games. They can sometimes make the games more complex because they're going to introduce rules that either not often engaged or they're incongruent with the core system, and thus some games can be tricky to run smoothly. With that in mind, what challenges can mini games present, and what are the ways to minimize those problems, either in design or at the table?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was working on Once More to the Void, it wasn't my first Firebrands framework game, right? So I made one previously. And with Once More to the Void, I really pushed like the design further. There was only one game that I kept that's mostly close to its original state from the Firebrand typical menu. which is the last time we touched, but like I added, I had to add more questions and more relationship character stuff in that game. But everything else was very, very much its own thing, even though I leaned on different mechanics that I've seen, but they were all completely original because I really wanted to lean into the tropes of sci-fi stories. So I think in design, a challenge is in being really clear with the instructions, keeping them super simple so that when people read them, they can half pay attention, right? They can read the rule, but they can still be listening to what's going on in the scene and in the moment. So having rules, having instructions that are easy to pick up and understand, but still delivering a powerful experience is that needle that I try to thread. And so from there, the next essential design step is providing a structure that's both compelling and evocative. I worked hard to make sure the choices and steps in each minigame provoke a reaction of some kind. Like, I know that I've done my job when I see people read it and they go like, ooh, like they make these faces. I'm like, okay, we're on the right track. Because I want to provide a really strong prompt that's still also open to interpretation and roleplay expression. So it's really, because I want the prompts and the game to be strong and evocative, but I also want them to be like, hey, I want you to engage in roleplay as much as you like. So when people tell me, oh, we spent the entire 4 hours with just a recruitment montage, I'm like, oh, okay, that meant that they felt welcome to just go all out, right? But yeah, so that's where I stand on the challenges, the delightful challenges of the mini games.
Yeah, for myself, I think that minigames need to have some kind of mechanical backbone in common. Sometimes in the form of Once More Into the Void, they use the same general resolution mechanics, but use differences in fiction in how those are interpreted. Or you could have very different, each minigame affecting a different variable in a larger equation, so that your action in the flirting phase affects how you're constrained in the negotiation phase. So that's actually the burning wheel approach. So they have to be hooked together either through the mini games as reskinning a core mechanic, or the different pieces fitting together like clockwork.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I will say, when Jason first emailed me about the game and I hadn't even looked at the game yet, he's like, this game is like 9 mini games, like all in one. And I was like, oh, like, I was like, oh no. Like, but again, I trust Jason implicitly. So like when Jason says it, I'm like, well, I should go look. Because normally when I hear like a designer's like, and there's 7 mini games, I'm like, oh, what is this going to be like to run? But as soon as I like read the PDF, I was like, oh, I get it. Right. Like, I get it. They're like, they all follow the same framework. And what's really interesting is the little variations in how how they're structured or how the tokens get calculated and distributed. And I was like, okay, okay, I get it. Like, this is like, these are not going to be hard to jump from one to the other. My actual piece of advice is from a design perspective is I think that there needs to be a relationship when you're designing mini games between frequency of use and complexity of the mini game. So if your mini game is going to be used all the time, it's okay if your mini game's complex because it'll keep getting played over and over throughout the game and everybody will get the hang of it. But if you make a mini game out of something that only happens once every 10 sessions and that's really complicated, it's going to change the pacing and of the game when it's run, because everyone is going to forget how it works and they're going to hit it and then it's going to be complicated. And so I think that if you're going to design mini games for, like, for instance, like an Aces and Eights is a Western game that is a massive tome of book, and it has a mini game for cattle, for moving cattle. But if your game only moves cattle like once, like a season, right? If that game's really complex, like, it's going to bog down when it's time to play it, or the GM's going to have to do like extra work to be able to facilitate it smoothly. So I would say that, like, as a design consideration, like, if you really want mini games to work in a game, keep like that idea of frequency and complexity, the relationship between the two of those in mind, because there's definitely a tuning. Like, I want this to come up a lot. I have the liberty to make this a little more complex. This isn't going to come up a lot. I'm going to make this a little more streamlined.
Okay.
How about you, Jer?
Kind of building on what Phil said. The one thing I think to be careful of is just make sure the games don't become too mechanical and take you out of the flow of the game. Depending on your mini game, if you're playing a game that's very crunchy with a lot of mechanics, then switching to another mechanic is going to be as difficult. If you're playing a story game or an indie game or a game with a lot of narration, then shifting to something that's too mechanical can cause some issues. So you want to make sure that either it's less mechanical or that the mechanics are easily remembered or easy to repeat. I think this works well with. Basically, the big thing is you want the mini game to bring you into the scene, not take you out of it. And so the mechanics can be part of pushing the story, pushing the encounter, pushing whatever the end result that you're looking for out of that scene. That should be what the game should be pushing towards. And it might just be the mechanic is experiencing that scene. If that's your objective, simply to experience that situation, there may be no particular end game in mind. You just might be wanting to have people experience that situation. The mini game should make that easy to do. The time frame, which is what Phil said about keeping the mechanics working properly.
And I'll say there's a lot to be said for layout in this whole thing as well, right? There's a whole thing about making the mini game accessible that is going to be, that's a big part of how is it going to be laid out. Consistency of layout, use of iconography to kind of key you in on certain parts, things like that. Those things, like those will all also help pull things together.
The iconography, yeah. Maybe I should put in like symbols. It's such a good. I might steal that.
Feel free.
Thank you so much, Phil.
No problem, because I'm gonna tell you at the end of the segment for a game that Senda and I, my other co-host on my other show, are working on, that I think I'm going to borrow some stuff from your game.
Please feel free. Yeah. Go. That'd be great.
But I'll save that till when we get to the end, because I'm not known for being able to land shows on time, but I'm looking at the clock and I am doing an exceptional job of getting us through this segment in a timely manner. Because
good, so.
Yeah,
because Jamie has a hard stop because you have to actually go and run another game.
Yeah, I'm running Blades in the Dark.
So fantastic. I love that game as well.
I believe that I'm legally obliged to say we're going on time.
Yeah, we're going right. Like that's
only if we proceed right now.
Yes. Yes. For right now, we're on time. Anyway, let me get us to our last topic. Normally when we do a garage discussion, when we're just, picking apart mechanics from other games, we talk about hacks and wish lists for these mechanics. So, Jamie, I want to ask you a question about Once More Into the Void. And since it's already been teased, can you tell us about another scene? Like, just give us hints or whatever about one of the other scenes that's going to come up in the stretch goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say this is subject to, final approval. I have a few ideas. I can't wait to talk to Jason and Avery about it. But basically, one of my favorite parts in Mass Effect 2 is there's this really harrowing moment. I'm not going to spoil it because the Legendary Edition is coming out. If you haven't played it and you like video games, I encourage you to go play it. But there's a moment where you play a character and it's the enemy that you're up against has attacked the ship, right? And it's a really striking moment because that ship up to that point had been like your safety hub, right? And so to see it suddenly change and to become so haunting and scary in that moment, I really, really wanted to try to translate that into a mini game where the stakes are high and the crew is caught off guard, and maybe that'll build up nicely into the final mission. Like, we have to, you hurt us or you took something from us. Like, maybe that might come up in the mini game. So whenever I brainstorm something that'd be really cool to add in a game, I start asking myself, what are the emotional truths that this will uncover, right? Like, what are the themes and emotions that I want to invite the player to engage in, and how does it connect to the essence and themes of what's going on in general, right? So in this case, answering the questions will help me establish the premise, the flow, and prompts of the minigame. I probably have each player describe what essential weapon, ability, or knowledge they've lost access to give that sense of like loss and being caught off guard, right? And then when we dive into the prompts, I'd have them set up, like, I want the players to establish themselves, like, how scary things are, like how dire things really are, and how much they've lost, right? Because I find, like, if you let the players do that, they'll actually go pretty hard. Like, you know, they will willingly go the distance for that. And so, and aside from that, the essential part of the scene for me, Mass Effect 2, is that tension, the horror, but the focus on like what needs to be done. What do I have to do in order to like get through this moment? And so it'll be interesting to have that moment where it might translate into like defending the ship or trying to create parts where you can defend it. I can't wait to like get into it and figure out what that's going to look. I have to say, like, when I designed, wrote, and laid out the first edition of Once More Into the Void, which is available now, which you get immediately when you back, I did all of that in 8 days, right? Like, and it was like, but I want to stress, right? It was like constantly throughout the day. I'd go to sleep dreaming about designing, and then when I'd wake up, I'd be in mid-thought. So I knew I was designing in my sleep. And then I get on the computer and just like lay out and type it all at once, like I was possessed. So I want to stress that. But this percolation, this like thinking about it helps so that when I sit down, it just comes out. But yeah, so that's what I have in mind, like a harrowing, they've attacked the ship, things are no longer safe. What are we going to protect? What's at stake? That's what I'd like to introduce.
Very cool.
I as soon as you said it, could picture it, and I can picture so many Star Trek episodes where that's the case. Where
exactly.
Like, did you fight them off? Did you have to run? Like, you know, what did we lose? Because, you know, like, what did we lose that made us run? What did we lose because we stood our ground? Oh,
exactly. Did you have to sacrifice something of the ship or something of yourself or a relationship, right? So
yeah. Oh no, you're definitely in the right spot. Like, that's
and also good. In the same thought, there's also the coming back home and everything's changed.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Home / a particular space station.
Yep.
Oh, they're good. They're so good. Yep. So I will tell you just briefly, so that we still have time to go to the conversation corner. So my writing partner, Senda, and I, writing partner, we've been designing this game called Ditch Lilies, which is about the greatest 90s all-girl band you've never heard of.
Wow, amazing.
And it's about traveling. It's about them traveling from town to town. And solving problems using queer love and rock and roll. Like, that's our pitch for the game. And we play tested at Metatopia. We had a good time of it, but we wound up talking after, actually all of us wound up talking after our last play of Once More Into the Void. And suddenly we were like, oh, you know what? Having the specific types of scenes would totally make this game, because we could help set the genre of what the game's about by having the scenes. And we have a mechanic that we could easily kind of fit into the mini game structure. We're like, okay, take these successes, but this is how you apply them in this scene. And very quickly we were like, oh, this is yes. Like, this is time to, like, we haven't written anything in a year, but it might be time to start like dusting off some Google Docs and going back to work.
Right. Sometimes you just need that gap to like wait for things to fit in perfectly. So it just feels like the thing that was missing from the game. And having started playing this, I was like, oh, I totally see how these scenes work, like how they fit together, and not only that, but how they inform genre, how they basically help to tell the tale that you're trying to tell. And I was like, oh, I could see a lot of parallels we could do here. Like, we got like time to get cracking. So, okay, cool. All right, so thank you so much for joining us for the garage. We're going to transition in just a moment over to the conversation corner, where we kind of just talk about ourselves. And I think we get you for 15 more minutes, so we're doing fantastic. Is Bob, our disembodied voice?
Yeah.
Is there anything coming out of the chat room that we should finish up on before we
I think
move
we're
over?
good. I think we can roll into the conversation corner.
Oh, fantastic. Hit us up. Alrighty. So yeah, here in the conversation corner, we just kind of talk about like generally geeky things that are giving us life, which we borrow heavily from the Gauntlet because we are also fans of the Gauntlet. Yeah, Jim, we'll start with you.
Yeah,
What's giving you life?
absolutely. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I was expecting Lowell to go, "What's giving you life?" Anyway, so, but yeah. So what's been giving me life lately is I really love video games. So when I'm not playing TTRPGs, I'm playing video games. I'm very consistent that way. And I'm really excited about the Legendary Edition from Mass Effect. I don't have it yet, but I'm just like so excited about it. I have been playing Mass Effect 2, the standard edition, the original one, before we get it. I've also been really enjoying the Xbox Game Pass, which is really, really great. So we got an Xbox, and actually my partner jokes that we got this like brand new next gen machine, but I use it to play indie games and old games, right? So I've been playing a lot of indie games which are part of the Xbox Game Pass, which is really great. So I got to play Eastshade, which is like the idea of Skyrim without combat. And it's very nice, very calming. I really love that one. I played it twice already. And The Gardens Between, a much shorter game about the relationship of time and memory, was super good. And in terms of older games, because I just like BioWare games, I've been replaying Dragon Age Origins. It's my ninth time I'm playing the game.
Wow.
Nice.
I really love it so much. I keep saying I'm not going to romance Alistair again, but it keeps happening over and over again. I can't. It's hard. I have one evil run through I haven't finished yet because that one's really painful. It's really difficult.
Run-throughs are hard.
And Dragon Age Origins, you're extra evil, right? You are super, super evil. It's not the same as being a badass renegade in Mass Effect.
And Mass Effect 3, Renegade, Gordon.
I would argue if you go extra renegade from the start in Mass Effect 1, I unlock this like different ending where if you go super renegade, Mordin just goes, "Yeah, I agree with you."
Oh,
and I was like,
really?
"What?" Yeah, I was so shocked. And you unlock this other secret thing in the deal. Anyway, I love BioWare games. Yeah. So if you go extra renegade, you actually get a completely different ending, which was really funny to me. But yeah, so that's what's been giving me life. Video games. I love them so much.
Jason.
So I recently finished off my run of the Clone Wars.
Ooh,
Nice.
so good.
Sorry, I did Rebels, then Clone Wars, which is the wrong order.
Oh, interesting.
Although I got to see a whole bunch of things. Like, oh, wait a second.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Darth
So you got to
Maul,
see
'cause we
them.
talked
Yeah,
about
that's
Darth
kind of
Maul.
cool, though. Yeah.
And so that led me to dig into Star Wars Battlefront because it's actually doing a really good job of displaying the visuals. And like going through Camino after watching the Clone Wars Battles of Camino episodes, and like it is shockingly good. Also, it was free at the time. That also helps. Which then ties into the Bad Batch. So I'm just an interwoven hub of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, I even recently finished The Light of the Republic from the High Republic, first book in the High Republic series, which is 300 years before the prequels.
Cool.
Yeah.
With a Wookiee Padawan. It's great.
Also. Oh my gosh, we need more Wookiee characters.
Mm-hmm.
And on theme, because I'm apparently stuck in science fiction mode, I've been doing Stellaris, which is kind of great. There's so much good stuff in that game.
Looks like a pretty big game.
Yeah. Oh no, it will eat your face.
Yes.
However, it lets you have choices like, do you embrace the brain slugs? Well, yes, of course I embrace the brain slugs. Okay, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Of course you embrace the brain slugs, as you do. I mean, that's...
And other than that, I'm trying to slowly learn to art, because it's literally the one area in my game publishing arsenal that I don't have.
It is okay to hire people, Jason. It is okay.
Yes, but I should be able to do literally everything. I mean,
it is okay to hire experts.
Layout, editing, writing, design. Like, I just need art, and then I'm good.
Jason's going to be the complete threat. Just
Yeah.
all in one.
The maximum threat, yeah, on all levels.
Maximum effort.
Oh, that's funny. Jer, what's up with you?
I'm going to keep this short because I got 10 minutes. So I watched the season finale of Invincible, which was amazing and set things up really interesting for next season. If you like superhero shows and don't mind a lot of violence, it's a great show and it does some great homages and pastiches of both DC and Marvel characters. I've really sunk into the Nevers a lot. It's the HBO show that's basically like mutant powers in a Victorian London. Good stuff. We're up to episode 4, and in true streaming service, episode 4, a bunch of stuff gets revealed that you've been waiting for. The plot drops and everything. It just everything ramps up. The homage, the adage, wait till episode 4, things will take off. Been playing a ton of Valheim with Bob. We died a lot this week. In the last week and a half, we've had a number of, this is a stupid idea, but let's try it. Okay, now let's build some characters to go find our bodies to get back all the stuff we had. We tried that. And we've had a couple of those. We've also done a lot of really interesting exploration and architectural experiments.
Yeah.
And lastly, like everyone else, I enjoyed the Bad Batch. No spoilers for everybody. Just, it's good. It's setting up some interesting things. Did some stuff I was not expecting. And that's all I'll say about it I don't want to ruin it for anybody. So I'll just say Bad Batch. If you like Star Wars, it's good Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, so along the Star Wars lines, I have continued my Lego retail therapy. I bought the Imperial Probe Droid set that they had. Not a ton of pieces, only like 900 pieces, but a lot of really small pieces. I actually had to take a nap when I was done building it because my eyes were so tired from looking through the bottom of my bifocals and
Wow.
But it's very cool looking. It looks just like an Imperial Probe Droid. It's awesome. They did a really nice set.
Yeah. If you're not aware, Bob and I are both Lego collectors, so we have lots of Legos.
No, Jerry's a Lego collector. I'm a dabbler.
Yeah,
Jerry's a Lego hoarder.
I'm not joking. I have a Lego room in the house.
Yes, a room.
Yes.
Yes.
Not a small room either.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I have a long way to go before I can compete with Jerry, but
You're gonna need a larger house, Bob, is what you're saying.
I haven't run entire tabletop role playing game campaigns using nothing but Lego.
yes.
So anyway, back to Bob.
Yeah, so for Senda's benefit, the She-Ra season 4 finale, I went through that and the first 2 episodes of season 5 and went, you had to wait 6 months for that reveal. I'm like, wow, that's not like waiting 3 months over the summer for Picard to get deborgified. That's 6 months. That was harsh. I'm glad I got to watch that like back to back practically. So, and along the lines of having a Lego room, I don't know if I'm going to have a Lego room, but I am actually, one of the things that's been giving me life lately is I'm finishing a chapter of my life and getting ready for a new chapter. I just started talking to a real estate agent today about selling my house.
Wow.
Nice.
My current housemate, who is my ex-wife, long story, but she's moving out finally with her boyfriend, and they just bought a house, and then it's just going to be me at the beginning of June, partway into June, and now I'm like, okay, I want to get out of this house and get myself something new, probably going to get a condo, because I don't want to do lawn care. And so I'm like really looking forward to like just kind of like starting fresh with a new space and seeing where I can go from there. So that's me. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, very nice. For me, really quick, I just started playing Kerbal Space Program. Was in the mood for something new, so I ordered it. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of physics. Not a trivial amount of physics, but you have to build a space program for your little Kerbals, and try not to get them killed in accidents, because you have to design the rockets yourself. So I've been having fun with that. I have not broken the atmosphere yet. I have taken several suborbital flights with my Kerbals and returned them safely so far. No, I've not lost any of my Kerbals. Took me a little while to come up with a naming scheme for my rockets. I was thinking the American space program had all of the Greek gods and things like that. And then I didn't want to appropriate anybody's culture. So I went with science fiction authors. So I had my first rocket was the Wells, and then the Lagoon, and then Herbert, I think is where I am right now. The Herbert Mark III is my current ship. So I'm just gonna I'm just going down the line, just naming them after famous sci-fi authors. I thought that it's a good solid naming scheme.
Be careful with that. Stellaris did the same thing.
Oh, I don't care. I came up with it by myself.
Their most recent update was named after Philip K.
Oh, well, I knew that was going to avoid that one. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean,
you knew that was coming.
The design's going to, never mind. Building rockets here. Okay. I'm also reading the Book of Hans, which is from the people who do the Fate SRD, which is a book of essays and articles on running Fate. So not that I haven't run Fate, I've run Fate plenty of times, but I'm always interested in understanding people who've run more of it, just trying to get their feel for the game so that I can improve my game, because I'm running iHunt, which I absolutely love.
iHunt is so good.
iHunt's amazing.
Really
this may be one of my favorite Fate games now. I love it. And lastly, I got into on Marvel Unlimited the new run of the Eternals, which I guess is getting ready to ramp up for getting the next in line for the movie. But
yep.
I read the original Eternals. I went back in Marvel Unlimited and read the 70s whatever, which was really out there. But I really like Jack Kirby's art, so I dug all the cosmic dots. But this new run, which is more modern age, was actually a little more accessible. I think just the writing was much better in terms of how to kind of explain where they fit in the Marvel universe. So I think there was only one episode or one issue so far on Marvel Unlimited, but I'm just gonna keep my eye out. Hopefully next week they'll load another one, and I'll just start reading those because I really dug those. Okay.
So Marvel Unlimited is great. Yeah.
Oh my god, I love Marvel Unlimited. I can wait. It's fine. We don't have to. I can wait till we get for 6 months.
We got 2 minutes left. So.
We have 2 minutes left. So what we're gonna do is make sure that Jamie and Jason tell us where they can be found on the internet, and then we're gonna let Jamie go. And thank you very much. I just want to thank you for coming on.
Yes.
It's been great. And best of luck with the campaign. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. And I'm happiest that you're going to be taking some of the tech from Once More Into the Void and putting into your own game. That's the best news I got. You. So really, really excited about that.
So where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter mainly at Temporal Hiccup, which is actually a Max Payne reference for when he freezes in time. Anyway, so I like to post Sailor Moon GIFs, and I'll probably be talking about Once More Into the Void too. What we really like to do is what I like seeing other people do, is talking about their design philosophy or how they came to a certain thing. So I'll probably be talking about Once More Into the Void a bit. And I love making games, like we talked about earlier. I have about 40-ish games on temporalhiccup.itch.io, which you can check out. And due to health reasons, I had to take a step back from releasing games on itch.io every month. but my patrons have access to all the games I'm working on. So I'm working on like some really big ones lately. So a particular note is my development on Apocalypse Keys, which I briefly talked about, a PBTA game about monsters holding back the apocalypse to investigate supernatural mysteries. It's been jokingly called Apocalypse Kisses because it's also a very emotional game. And the other game I'm working on is called Decline Oblige. I'm not sure if we're keeping that title. It's a working title for now. It's a Forge in the Dark game of high-level political intrigue in a broken fantasy world ravaged by a curse. So that's been super, super fun. And if you want to further support my game design and check out what I'm working on, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/SolarQueenGames. That would be super cool. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
And one quick warning for everybody who's watching before Jamie logs out of the Zoom. The video is going to get wonky because of the nature of the way OBS and Zoom talk to each other. When their video goes out of the Zoom, it's just all going to go to hell. And I don't have time. By the time
we're just going to keep going.
So we're just going to keep rocking.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll go ahead and I'll be playing Blades in the Dark in a few minutes. I'll see you, everybody.
Enjoy your game.
Thank you so much.
And I'll chat with you tonight.
Yes, we're gonna brainstorm. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
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 And there you have it.
And so Jason, where do we find you?
You can find me at Genesis of Legend. Oh, this is amusing. Sorry, I'm just looking at the Twitch that's broken. It's delightful. At Genesis of Legend on Twitter, genesisoflegend@gmail.com, Genesis of Legend .ca. It's pretty easy to find me.
And Kickstarter
on the RPG Design Panelcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love your panel cast.
It's I am juggling a lot of balls at this point in time. Although we'll save that for the after show.
There you go. All right, Bob, in order to get us out of here in a clean and orderly fashion, would you mind running through the patron shout-outs?
I would love to. And you know what time it is? It's time for the Royal Court. So we have big thanks to Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies, Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice, Bread, the Royal Mead Maker, Craig, the Lord of One Name, Eric Bontz, the Duke of Gators and the Lord of Beefness, our very own GM Gerrymander, the Lord of the After Show, Jesse Edmond, the Royal Doctor, Jim from Jim Loves Games, the Royal Merchant Emeritus, Evil John Carney, the Court Necromancer, Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard, Richard Wyatt, Captain of the Royal Airship Fleet, Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth,
Schmitty,
Tiberius Starcrash Smith, the Baron of Britannia, and Todd Crapper, the Prophet of Probability. Thank you all for being our patrons.
Indeed.
And thank you to everyone for listening.
There you go. If you're free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, you're welcome. Come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
If you can't make the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. And let's take a listen to some of those shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Mastering Dungeons, Bone Soul and Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnomecast, Xianghu Hustle, The Lounge, Force Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
So before you make that loyalty draw, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via the old school email system, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. I'm not even pointing because I don't know where anyone is in the Twitch right now. The show and the network again, Misdirected Mark. One of these people is at Robert M. Everson. The other one's GM Gerrymander, and I, the only one I can point to reliably, I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games are all at patreon.com/MMP. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle. And bonus experiences at patreon.com/bonus experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production. The media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.